name is Makia James, and I'm a training manager with Firestone. Today I'm out with Tom Rodgers, who is our Director of Global Ag, and he's going to tell us a little bit about how stubble damage affects our tires. So, Tom, what can you tell us about this stubble out here and the way it affects our tires?
So stubble, we call it stubble damage, is really one of the biggest issues we have from a durability standpoint. Used to be load or just carrying capacity and the tire surviving there. But today's stubble has become so hard and so rigid because you've got all your folks out there making, growing seed and producing seed that's genetically stronger and yielding more. It's also putting together a much stronger stalk. And so you wind up, when the combine comes across the field, each one of these stalks is cut, and then the next tire that comes across it, whether it's on the combine or on a tractor later, has to take that punch, and literally that's what hits the tire every 5, 6, 7 inches going across the field. And it becomes either a puncture potential or we call stubble erosion, where each one of those stalks pecks at the tire and eventually eats the rubber away, and we eventually have a problem where there's a replacement needed.
Okay, so what is that you have here in your hand?
This is an old device called a Durometer that measures the hardness of something, anything. It's got a little pin in it. You put it up against it, and there's a reading on the stalk, a reading on the device. You hold that pin against the stalk, and you wind up here. The reading is 92. So it's a relative number to something else, and in this case, the tire being something else. We can check those later, but a tire is going to come in anywhere between 70 and 80 in terms of hardness.
Wow.
The hardness of this was 92.
Wow.
So rubber's losing that battle every time because of the rigidity and the real strength of that stalk.
So what can farmers do to protect their tires against the stubble? Like, what can we do about this?
So there's a couple things, and maybe we'll go to some other areas in the field. We're lucky to be at Farm Progress Show where they're demonstrating different machines with different heads, and so there's different ways you can cut at different heights. You can kind of shatter it, or they have what we call stubble shoes, which is our most preferred way of kind of eliminating the problem. It's basically a shield or a skid that slides along under the combine and breaks them off as it goes. And once that stalk is snapped over, it loses all of its strength in terms of its rigidity and doesn't damage the tire near as much. So that stubble shoe is the best thing, but there's other things on the heads, devices that help that as well. So we can look at some of that as we go. So Makia, as we were talking here, this is one of the ones where it's just cut off very short and very crisp, and that's one of the ones that can do the worst type of damage to tires. The next pass, if we look over here, we see the stalks are longer, they're a little bit more chewed up, but most importantly, they're all broken over, if you will, or snapped off, and that's the stubble shoes. Where on this device, I remember watching it go by, each row had a stubble device that pushed it over, and really that makes it so much easier on the tire in terms of having to take that punishment.
Okay, awesome.
This combine head has cutters on it. So they're cutting as it goes, and they're shattering. They're making all these pieces. And as that dries out, what happens is it almost makes it worse for stubble erosion because you've got 10 or 12 points instead of just one.
Yeah.
So the cutter sometimes can create even more of a problem for kind of spreading out even more erosion.
Okay.
You get to this kind of crop, and it's much taller. This one is nearly 12, 14 inches, so the combine head's running higher. It's still very rigid, but
very strong.
as the tire hits it, it hits it higher, so it's not as much to catch. So chances are the tire can push it over maybe with less damage than a real short one that just takes the hit.
So at Firestone, what tires do we typically offer for harvest combines?
So in North America, and a lot of the combines we've seen over here have a dual drives. So there's 2 tires on each side, and they call them, the industry kind of calls them straddle duals. But that's really good because it's straddling the row, and those 2 tires again are narrow enough to fit down the row.
Okay.
The challenge becomes, as these machines get heavier, we have a pretty good sized tire on the rear to carry the rear of the steer axle, and it gets too wide to go down the row, and so it's the one that's actually running over. So we've kind of moved the problem from the front to the rear, and so at some point you just can't avoid it, and so the stubble shoes again is really our best recommendation. and the thing we try to educate the most on.
That's awesome. Awesome. Thank you, Tom.
You bet.
This was very good information. I highly suggest you share this video with as many people as you can, because this is very important. And if you want more information, I'll visit firestoneag.com.